Hello, and welcome to Explorer Classroom. My name is Jennifer Bergen, and I am so glad you are joining us today. Many viewers around the world have been celebrating Ramadan, and they are getting prepared for Eid this week. We wish you a special time of celebration. Ramadan Mubarak. At National Geographic, we know the power of exploration, wonder, and storytelling can change the world. And this Explorer Classroom YouTube show connects students from all over the world with our National Geographic Explorers for a short lesson and time for your questions. Today, our explorer is Kasim Rafiq. Kasim is a wildlife ecologist who focuses on the conservation of large African carnivores. This means he researches and helps protect animals like lions and wild dogs and cheetahs. Though he is from Scotland, he travels to Botswana and the Okavango River Delta in Africa and works in Washington State. Besides traveling for his studies and work, Kasim collaborates with others at the Botswana Predator Conservation Trust and at his lab at the University of Washington. Through teamwork, field visits, and education, Kasim and his teammates are helping protect incredible creatures like big cats. But before we get into today's lesson, we'd like to welcome our viewers who have registered for a shout out, and they join us from all over the globe. Hello to John F. Kennedy Elementary, Scuola Gimnaziala. I think I said that right, but welcome to you all. The Franklin School, East Prairie Elementary School, West Noble Primary, West Dover, Homeschool Express, Barker Middle School, Red Cedar Elementary, Kalispell Middle, Kitson Central, the Show Family, the International School of Ulaanbaatar, Odia Core Knowledge Elementary, Cynthia Heights Elementary, Mineral Point Elementary, St. Patrick's School, Hillard Elementary, Virtual Elementary, Laws Family Co-op, the Kemp School, Burnsville-Egan Savage School District, Discovery Charter School, New Hanover Elementary, L.C. Smith Elementary, the Coates family, and all of our homeschoolers out there. We are so thrilled to have you and more tuning in today. And with that, let's get this Explorer Classroom started. We're going to hand it over to Kasim to share all about big cats and how to study them in the wild. Kasim, take it away.
Hi, everyone. It's very, very nice to meet you all. So I am going to show you lots of nice pictures today of all the animals that I work with. So let me get them up for you. Okay, so it's very, very nice to see you all and meet so many new faces. My name is Kasim, but you can call me Kaz, and I'm a wildlife scientist. So I study the behavior of big cats and dogs in Africa. So this means I study things like where do they move, when are they awake, when do they eat, and what do they eat? And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it's like to be a wildlife scientist, why it's really, really important to study animal behavior. And I'm going to tell you about some of the tools that scientists like me use to watch animals when they think they're all alone. So I'm going to start with a question, and it might be a hard question. So if you don't know the answer, it's absolutely fine. But we can give groups of animals lots of different names based on how they look and the things that they do. And I study a group of animals called carnivores. Now, does anyone know what carnivores means? And if you do, just put your hand in the air so that I can see. Okay, cool. Okay, there's a few of you, and that's great. And if you don't know, it's absolutely fine. I'm going to give you the answer. Carnivores are animals that only eat meat. And there are carnivores all over the world. And I study the biggest ones in Africa. So these are just some of the animals that I study. Now, I'm going to give you a few seconds. I want you to look at these animals and just think to yourself if you know any of their names, and then I'll tell you. All right, so first of all, we have African wild dogs. Now, these might look like normal dogs, but they've got massive ears and they can move these ears around to listen to what's around them in the environment. So they can use their ears to listen for food or see if there's anyone nearby that they don't want to meet. So if you want to pretend to be a wild dog, you can just put your hands up, cover your ears, and just move them around and see if you can hear anything in your environment. Next, we have spotted hyenas. Now, some of you might have known this animal from The Lion King, which is one of my favorite films. Now, next we have lions. So lions are Africa's biggest carnivore. They're so big that they're about the same size as 2 to 3 grown-ups. I think that's pretty big. Now, next we have two animals that look very, very, very similar. So one of them is called a cheetah, and the other one is called a leopard. Now, this is a very, very hard question, and lots of my friends don't know the answer. So if you don't know the answer, it's absolutely fine. But which of these animals do you think is a cheetah? So how many of you think the animal at the top is a cheetah? If you think it's this one, put your hand in the air. Okay, there's a few of you. And how many of you think that the one at the bottom is a cheetah? Put your hands right in the air so I can see. Okay, a few more. That's great. So I'm going to give you the answer, and this was very, very hard. But the one at the top is actually a cheetah. So they both have these spotty patterns in their bodies. So it's very, very hard to tell them apart. But a really, really good way to tell apart a cheetah from a leopard is by the black marks that run down their eyes. So if you see those black marks, you know that you're looking at a cheetah. Now, all of these animals are ones that I study in my work, and they all eat meat. So they're all carnivores. Now, I told you earlier that The Lion King was my favorite film. And if you've ever seen it, you might remember that in the film, lions and hyenas, well, they don't always get along. And that's also true in real life. And it's true for a lot of these different animals. So all of these animals live in similar places. Sometimes they eat the same foods. And if we're being honest, they really, really, really don't like each other. So the wild dogs and the lions, for example, they really don't like each other. So sometimes they'll fight. Sometimes they steal each other's food, and they can even kill each other. And because the lions are so big, when these animals meet, the lions will probably win any fights. And that means that some of the smaller animals, like the wild dogs, will change how they act so that they don't meet some of the bigger ones, like the lions. And they do that because they're scared. So they might do things like avoid going to certain places because they don't want to see a lion, or they might only come out to play and eat when the lions are asleep. So these are just some of the ways that animals can change what they do so that they can live beside each other. And this is one of the things that me and my team study. So we ask questions like, what are all of the different ways that these animals can change their behaviors to live together in the same places? Now, why do you think this is important? Well, I want to explain with an example. So how many of you have a pet or have met someone who has a pet? Like how many of you have pets or your friends have pets? Just put your hand in the air. Okay, nearly everyone. That's great. And how many of you have played with a dog? So again, put your hands in the air if you've ever played with a dog. Okay, again, a lot of you. That's great. Well, dogs, they can't speak English, right? But when you're playing with them, you can still tell when they're happy. You can tell when they're sad. You can tell when they're angry. And sometimes you can even tell when they're hungry, and you can give them food to make them full. But how can you do all of that if the dogs can't speak to you, if they can't speak English? Well, you might not have thought about it, but we can tell a lot about what an animal needs or what an animal wants through how it acts. So if we look at its body and its face, we can learn a lot about these animals. And that's the same for wild animals like lions and wild dogs. So if we just sit with them and we watch them and we look at what they're doing, we can learn a lot about them. So we can learn things like, why are these animals doing the things that they do? What do these animals need to survive? And if we learn all of that, it can help us to make decisions about what we need to do to help those animals. And that's really, really important because for a lot of these animals, their numbers are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so we need to do everything that we can to help them. So that's why learning about animal behavior is so important. But how do we do this? Well, one of the easiest ways is to just sit beside an animal and to watch it. So how many of you have been to the zoo and watched an animal? So put your hands up if you've ever been to the zoo. Okay, a few of you. That's great. So that's exactly what me and my team do as well. So we watch animals, but we do it in the wild. So I work with an amazing team, lots of incredible people. And we work really, really hard to learn what these animals are doing. So every day when you're still in bed, we'll wake up, we'll get into a car, and we'll go and find these animals. And when we do, we'll stay with them all day. So from the minute the sun comes up until it goes down again, I'll spend it with a lion or a wild dog. Now, it takes a lot of time to watch these animals, but just sitting with them is a really great way to learn what they're doing and how they behave. So like these sisters, for example, they love to take care of each other and they're just playing. The problem is that when you're just sitting with these animals and you're watching them, that's great, but it can be really, really difficult to find them. So sometimes these animals live in places where it's really, really difficult to see them or to find them. And that can be places with lots of trees or lots of grass, or maybe they live in places that are really, really muddy. So this is a picture when I drove into some mud when I was looking for a lion. The car got stuck and then I had to get really, really messy to try and get out. So it's really, really hard sometimes to see what these animals are doing by just sitting with them. So another way we can learn about these animals is to use camera traps. So we put cameras by the side of the road and we can ask that camera to take a picture or to take a video every time an animal walks past. And that's really, really sneaky because when the animals think they're alone and when they think there's no one there, we can learn exactly what they're doing. So for example, did you know that a lot of these animals will use pee to send secret messages to each other? This, for example, is a lion peeing on a bush so that when other lions come across, they can smell that pee and tell that that lion was there before. And this was taken using a camera that we put on the side of the road. Now, these cameras are also great for looking at very funny animal behaviors as well. So did you know, for example, that most of the time when a cat falls, it will land on its feet? And if you don't believe me, I'm going to show you a video of my favorite leopard, and he climbs a tree and then he falls out. So even when he falls, you see he lands on his feet. So learning about animal behavior is just about trying to understand why animals are doing what they do. And the easiest way to do that is just to sit there and watch them. So the next time that you go to a park or you're with a pet or you're at a zoo, I want you to just take a seat and watch what the animals are doing around you and see if you can understand exactly why they're doing some of the things that you see them doing. And then share that with your friends, your families, and your teachers. And if you can do that, well, then you're doing exactly what me and my team do every single day. And so you're also a wildlife scientist. So that's all I have to share with you just now. But thank you very much for your attention. And I'm very, very excited to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, Kasim, I want to ask a final question for everyone to you. And how can we join your mission? How can we help protect the wildlife, not just in Africa, but where we live too?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's three things that you can do, and they're all connected. So next time you see some wildlife, I want you to just sit with it, watch it, and see if you can understand what it's doing. And then look at how its behavior and how it acts is being impacted by people around it and things like dogs and cats. And then think about whether we, people, are making it happy or sad or scared. And then lastly, just think about how we could change our behaviors to help those animals based on what you've just learned. So for example, if you see some ducks in the pond and those ducks have little babies, and when people go close to them, those ducks move away, it might be because they're scared. So how could we change our behaviors to help those animals?
Well, Kasim, thank you so much for your expertise and your time. It's been such a treat to have you here today.
Thank you all for coming. It was lovely to meet you all.
And to all of our students and our teachers, I hope that you are more passionate about big cats after today's show. And I hope you're just more curious in general. In fact, why don't you join us for more events? Next week, same day of the week, same time, we're going to have another explorer, Frédéric Fardin, and we're going to learn all about mangroves. If you don't know what they are, you are in for such a treat. You can register online for a student group or your family. You can even get a chance to be on screen, ask your question live. Go to natgeoed.org/Explorer Classroom. Have a great day, everyone. Stay curious. And if you are on screen, would you be willing to turn on your microphones right now? And let's give a great big lions, leopards, cheetahs roar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.